At home, that you need a heker, and the Rabbi says you need a heker to remind yourself that your wife is in it. And I just want to reiterate, because the Tzemach is incredible clever. He tries to make sure we forget things. See this, we know that memory is Chaim, Mishkach Ikineis 11. You know, forgetting is death. When a person is full of memory, is full of life, that's life. A person is forgetfulness is part of dying, so to say. So the Tzemach really tries to, anyone's married a long time, you know, he just tries to get to us. I always say to myself and to friends, it's not a fear game. He went to military school, he knows every trick in the book, and we sit back and we think nothing's going to happen to us. And then boom, and then there he is. Anyway, so Chazal, for that reason, made a lot of a cater. You should remind yourself your wife is a Nidah, and that reminds you shouldn't get into trouble. So one of the things that we learn over here is that you should, when you eat, you should have a heker. Now, I have to explain that the Rabbi has a brings down a remove that says the mini was, and the Tzedek seems like in his days, he seems like the mini still was those days. When your wife was clean, you shared a bowl together. You ate together from one bowl. One plate, one bowl, everyone knew, and everyone was around. You know, so spoke about this, how this worked, I don't know. But this is how it used to be. And your wife is a Nidah, she had a separate bowl. You know, today's woman will chalish. I was in the hospital, and someone quoted me, saw me, he says, "Hey, you look familiar, I saw you, I didn't know that this is so popular." I better be careful what I say here. But anyways, but I wonder how this works, how that works, because today's woman, it's the last thing in the world they want anyone to know if they're clean or not. This is like the own mother, the own sister, you know, they get so annoyed and so sensitive. I mean, it really is a cultural thing. Probably those days, people look at it this way. But in short, so the meaning was that you eat together with your wife on one plate, and when she's in it, you don't share a plate. That's the biggest hecker. You don't need anything else. Now he explains. I want to just say about that quickly. He says some say that's only we're all eating at one table, like general families. Big table, so there's a hecker, you're eating together on one plate. What happens is the couple have a separate table. You start such a thing, everyone else have their table. The husband and wife shared, a table themselves. Women love this shit. They would like to hear this. Women are very much into, I always tell young people, men, you ask a guy, how's your Shabbat? It's great. Ask your wife, how's your Shabbat? I don't feel connected lately. Women are always busy. How's the relationship going? We men are oblivious. We come home, and I'm saying, so imagine, this is how it used to be. It used to be that the men would have a table, they sit together, the man and the wife, couple and the rest. So then, even if you eat a separate plate, there's some machmirim that's not good a hecker, because you are intimate atmosphere. Even though you're having a separate plate, and even though normally we eat together one plate, but the fact that the two of you sitting at the table alone, that sort of shows an intimate atmosphere that's not good. In the Rav, the Tzedek says, others argue, and you can be making. It's very interesting. It seems like this was done in his times. I asked her, I've never heard anyone do these things. So his wife said, that's not heard of.
In the bowl or sitting together?
Sitting together, eating one bowl. I thought the first time I learned it, maybe the Svardim do it still. I asked some friends when I was 30 years ago, make it, and they never heard this.
Let's go back to the days of the Gemara. Everyone had their own table.
Yeah, but his thing, the China has a separate table.
Yeah, like the couple tables.
Right.
The Svardim eat in different houses.
They get upset.
I made that comment the second time tonight.
I thought you said something about that tonight.
Okay. We're up to the line. Let's go to the line. First with the cadence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 lines from the bottom of the Gimel. So yes, on I heard this from a woman. I once had a lady call me up, and she said she was a newlywed, and she said she feels extremely offended that her husband put something in between them. Very, very personal, she said. And I came up with different ideas, nothing she didn't like any other ideas. And I came up with this idea, which I know that some Tzedek doesn't approve it. The idea is that if you change the place, so it brings another shini to remind you. So let's say you always sit here and right there. Switch places, sit there and sit here. Just switch the places in the kitchen or the table, dining table. That is also hecker. No, you don't have to put anything in between. People are sometimes sensitive. So the Yeshomim Shehim Ishanus Lekoyman Yichad the Shift al Shilchan. I say Ain't Hecker, you don't need another hecker. Nerish Eina haben can. The Tzemach Tzedek on his own says that he's not allowed to. Now he goes on, and then it's the Rav, because you mavie kar durch Chatichas gedoiles, while neutel Chatichas meestal full of alle karas and mechedes loy. Let me explain this Halacha outside just to make it clear. You see, Chazal wanted to break the romance in the ear. That's really, many of this you'll see. One of the things is, eating together for one plate is real intimacy. It's like you sit down, you eat popcorn for one plate, or you take a drive and you share. It's your wife. I have a lot of children. Nothing is like when your wife is nashes with you. It's different than your daughters and your sons are nashing with you. So it's an intimate feeling. So when you're eating together, taking one plate, so that is an intimate moment, sort of to say, where you need a hectic. You're not allowed to do that. So you're not allowed to eat. You want to sit down with a popcorn. I'm sure no one has a movie here, no one's telling you. But Imtin Saloim, by mistake, you sat down and watched the movie with your wife and you want to take popcorn together, that is forbidden. You can take out the popcorn, put it down. But eating together, that is or eating potato chips together from one bag. Or drinking a Slurpee, it's called Slurpee together. All that is Slurpee is for sure.
Having celery, having nuts, we can speak about healthy food.
Yeah. However you want, but eating from one plate is not good. So he says, this is what he explains. Now, if you bring a big plate, he explains, and everyone takes food to the plate, that's okay. But if there's a big plate and everyone is gnashing, it seems from the Tzemach Tzedek that his opinion is that even everyone is gnashing is no good, because we hold that if everyone is gnashing, it loses its romance. It's not. Everyone is doing it. But his words, where you think about accept, that they understood that the Tzemach Tzedek said even others are eating with it.
Does that mean that if it's a public bowl where you have a bowl of nuts in the shul, and I go grab some nuts from the shul, she can't go from that bowl, or is it?
That's a comment that Tzemach Tzedek.
No, but it's just like Rabbi Tauber said. But if you put the nuts on your own plate and then you eat it,
he's
that's
right.
not a problem.
He's right. Well, he's right in the kiddush and home, and you have a big bowl. I would say we non-Chabad, except the cooler that if other people are eating from it, it loses its
You
romance.
can eat directly, I'm just thinking.
You can directly.
But if I can put it on my own plate.
He's asking a very practical question. There is nothing there. You know, imagine you have it home and everyone has a big bowl and eating from it. It's really, I'm just saying, but if you learn that the Tzemach Tzedek said, eat with others are meko. Many achronim hold that once you have a bunch of people eating from the bowl, it loses its whole meaning.
You brought up an issue. If you're in a shul, you're at a shmodes board, now a chappen with the heads. You don't know that she's going to eat from it. She doesn't know that you're going to eat from it. There shouldn't be a problem.
If you don't know, then it's not a problem.
It's
But
not
let's say you do know.
you don't know.
Yeah, but if let's say you do know your wife next to you.
What's that? So if a shul's having a dinner and they have they do what do you call it? Where you go serve
It's
yourself.
not an issue, you put it on your
But
plate.
that's right,
Yeah,
right.
I'm saying that is not a problem.
But if you take it
On
out,
your own plate, then I eat.
but you are right. When he is right, I would see my kid, a small kid show home people make out a huge bowl, and you take out nuts and popcorn. Everyone is standing around gnashing.
Probably the real issue would be like if you have one of these like bowls of guacamole and people, everyone's sticking their chips in and eating it. That would be an example where that's what they're doing. They're not eating. Then people are eating directly from it.
Right.
I know, like one of those vegetable platters where they dip it in.
So according to the Tzemach Tzedek,
It's not good.
it sounds like it's not good. That's what it sounds like. Okay. The husband cannot give his wife a portion. Like he just said, it's a gummy as we even though you took a piece after she took a piece, you're all taking from one bowl and eating from it, there's no heter. So the kid said that Tzemach Tzedek seems to say even if the whole family is eating together from one big bowl, you're not allowed to eat a heker. That's what he seems to say. That's very important. Very important.
If you're serving multiple plates,
Then it's not a problem. It's not a problem. They told him direct, we're just saying that the problem is they hate eating from one bowl. So eating chips, or driving with your wife and eating from.
but it says you can't serve the spouse.
Can't serve the spouse, but later they repeats it again later.
But if you serve two plates at once,
Right, if it's just put a bunch of plates down, it's okay. Or if you serve with the left hand, we'll see, we got to that.
Is it not enough of a hecker if you're passing it to one another? Even if I put it down, but if let's say we have something between us, I mean, does that make, because we're now reminded, we switched our seating, we're sitting in shul, I pass it to somebody else, they put their hand
But there's a separate issa giving the food. That's besides that, you need
Right.
a hecker where you sit.
But you might have a hecker. You might have a hecker. I'm not sitting next to her. We're sitting in shul. She's sitting.
That's not good enough. That's true. What you're asking is good, but Chazal demanded a hecker at the food table, even each one has a separate plate, and a hecker don't serve it directly. Food, look, when you're dating, you go out, why do people eat together? That brings, I don't know if it's in English, the heart, the Loshen HaGemara is, the Loshen HaGemara brings the hearts together, that's the Loshen HaGemara. It does bring people together. If anyone knows that one of the most important things in a family, nucleus of family, is eating dinner together. It's a very powerful thing. It's very healthy, very powerful. So that's why it is important, so you need a hecker, double hecker. So you need a hecker, but he just said,
You can't pass and a hecker, that's for
right.
sure.
Okay. Up to Dalit. He says, Lo yishta mishire kosher shasi. You're not allowed to drink the leftover of her kais. Young people, in today's day, this is very important. Woman, see, I have daughters, many married daughters. Women are always busy with the weight today.
With the what?
Weight. So they drink a soda, no, half is left over. I want to forget it. So, when you newlywed, no one else has to drink, and the husband says, in Yiddish, when we grew up, we used to say, newlyweds always gain weight. Mitzvahs. What's the mitzvah? His wife leaves over food, he eats it. He eats his portion, half of her portion. So I'm saying, so if she leaves over a soda, you cannot drink the leftover soda. She leaves over, from her cup. But if you pour a cup into another cup, then it's okay. The idea is that it's an intimate feeling. You drink her leftover. You wouldn't drink, most people are not going to drink someone else leftover. It's your wife, it's her leftover, you drink, that's why you're not allowed to do that. But if once you pour it in another cup, it loses. Why did I have to put it in another cup? Well, she's a Nidah. Really punches me in the nose. She's a Nidah. It busts whatever romance is in the air. I mean, here, she drank the soda, she left over, and I can't even drink over the leftover. I have to pour it into another cup. You understand that? Because it reminds you, it says again and again, your wife is a Nidah.
Vice versa,
But she's allowed to drink his leftover, because you know why? We are troublemakers. We are, I don't know how to Mishnah, but we are marble. We initiate more than women. Woman, so that was the klala, the chavaket, she don't initiate that much as men. Men are much more focused in sex.
So if you're driving, together and there's one soda that you got, it's a big one.
Drink the whole thing up.
It's not enough to put it down,
No.
even if it's 3/4 of the level.
That's all, you think
You
first.
drink the second first.
Get an extra
Drink
cup.
first and afterwards you can drink it.
Why won't they? Or just pour the soda
For
out?
me, it's not a problem. My wife is always diet soda, and I don't like dry soda. It's never a problem. Okay.
Well, let me answer. Something that happens in my house.
Speak up. You have to speak up. I'm not-
Yeah, something that happens in my house that you go to the cupboard. There's not a cup out, but you look on the counter. Maybe there's like 5 cups that look like someone maybe drank some water in it or
If
something.
you don't know, in a minute, if you don't know your wife drank, it's going to be any of the children. You have no idea, then it's you can drink it.
I think even if he knows if his wife is not there,
If she left, it
Oh,
shows
okay.
that it's okay. And if your wife is there, then you have, if you have me and Shem, the children get older, they always, and if the girls, they always leave over half.
it's already happening by then.
I have a house full of girls, and for some reason, always after dinner, they never finish. If it's orange juice or the soda, it's never, they always leave shine. Okay. So anyways, let's move on. So he says, he says, even though you didn't wash it out in between. Someone asked me that he was told you can't use your wife's toothbrush. And I said, it says before the Hilchos not that way. It says if the cup was not, you just poured it into another cup, and you want to use her cup for other soda, you can use it. Even though maybe you wouldn't use someone else's cup, but you actually would, because even though it's your wife, that's where you use her cup, but the bottom line is it has to be drinking from her cup. It has to connect it to food, not doing something that, just because you're using her toothbrush and you wouldn't use someone else's toothbrush, and if your wife use it, it's not good enough. It has to be drinking the shrine. So if you have small children, you bring buy a big Slurpee, and you have an eighth, someone asked. When your children start growing up, when you have children, so if one of them drinks in between, you know why? Being married a long time, it just breaks any romance that's there. You know what I mean? I cannot drink. Give it to the baby, give it to Chaya, she should drink first.
Isn't it the same thing with snacks?
We'll see in a minute, he says. If you pour it back to the original cost, it's also okay. Because it's just the same idea. Since you got to do something, it just reminds you. He ain't an idea. If you drank and he has no idea. If this is what you just spoke about, he has no idea that his wife drank from this cup. Well, if it's wife and you have no children yet, it's left over. But let's say when you have children, you don't know who left over the cup. And it's she doesn't have to tell him it's my cup. He says, she left home. Yes,
538.
So he says, once she leaves, there is no chibra. She's not here, So today, those days there was no long distance romance. Today you send an IM message or, what's it called, SM message, SIM message. She's gone, she's out of the house, you're drinking a leftover, this, doesn't help you much. Okay. Yes, Omrim, somehow you're not allowed to eat her shrine. So she's allowed to eat your shrine, but you're not allowed to eat her shrine. You know what I mean? Like, because again, you're eating her shrine, you're not eating someone else's food. It's your wife, you'll eat her leftovers, that brings a chibur. But again, if you pour the food into your plate, then it's okay. That means you can eat her shrine, put it into your plate. But if it's not, if it's straight from a plate, that is also. Why am I eating a leftover? Because there's a chibur, there's a love. It's my wife, so it brings a chibur, then it's us.
Wait, Tauber, I heard that the woman can eat the husband's shirayim because if she is a housewife, she's eating everyone's shirayim. No such a thing.
No.
That's not. In other words, they were trying to say that today, that if a woman doesn't go to the kitchen, she also cannot eat. No.
The reason is because women, the Siddur explains, women are not medical. See, a man, it's my wife, the next thing is sex. That's how we men are that. That's how we are. Let's be honest. There's no ladies here. We are wired with,
If eating the leftover food when she left the house.
Not when she left the house is okay.
Okay.
But he says, eating our food, we are very much wired this way. That's a human being, men are that way.
But once you move it from her plate to yours, suddenly it's all...
Because, so why did I have to do
You
that?
break the current.
It breaks
So
it.
why did I have to do that?
Maybe you got ketchup on your plate.
He says, "Only the cholif nehetish because rather nitig am ma'ach vi miteres lishte b'shira koshelo lech b'shira." She's allowed to eat her shrine. Again, eating her shrine, she's allowed. As I said, that's very simple. If a woman don't get so, by them it's a whole different way. They don't look at it this way as we do. Okay, you're not allowed to sit in the bed. The Tzemach Tzedek is very machmer, very interesting. This Simon is very machmer because many hold, he himself brings in many hold, there's no such halacha, but he goes with the chumrah, you cannot sit on the bed which is designated for her bed. So she's a Nidah, you cannot sit in her bed. For the shloiba for now, even though she's not there. A big chiddush, many hold only in front of her. He says, even shloiba for now, not to sit down. Kedei shluva de hitter. See? We don't want to start, our machine going. I don't know how to say it better. But you know what I mean? Like, if you sit on the bed, this is her bed, and the next thing you think, we men are that way. This is nothing to be ashamed. I didn't do it. I didn't do it to myself. I was created this way. So, that's what we are. We sit in the bed, and right away think, okay, the next thing is thinking. So, we avoid doing it. So don't sit in her bed, he says. She shouldn't lay down in his bed in front of him. She's allowed to sit on his bed, but if she's going to lay down in his bed, that's, in front of him, that's see, a woman laying down in his bed, he's not there, doesn't do nothing. See, women are totally wired differently. There's nothing to do just because they saw you and you're so gorgeous, so handsome. No, that doesn't happen with them. So a woman, a man is this way. A man is, he sees his wife laying in bed, boom. So he says that's why. Some hold that it's only when he's laying, the good old days, you went to sleep without clothing. And a simple reason they couldn't afford to have pajamas. They just slept without clothing, period. Not because, you see how the dresses used to be like. I tell people that at the times of Shiurim, not long ago, people used to make this clothing smell. You know what I noticed? I just told someone asked me this question. Someone asked me about perfume. So I said, it's interesting. I'm young. I'm still young. But I've been dealing with Halacha for 30 years. And, you know, 30 years ago, every young lady wore perfume. Today, no matter who, the young women don't want to wear perfumes. They're just not into it. Why was the old generation, my mother's generation? You know how often you used to bathe in Europe, my mother says? If you were wealthy, my mother's parents were wealthy, they bathed once a week. Because they had a sort of a, you know, I go to Uman, Shoshana, and you go to the houses there, at the first time, there's no such thing as a shower. I mean, what? So they go to a bathhouse. You have to have money to go to a bathhouse. You know what I mean? It costs money. And you know, every day. The times of the Gemara used to bathe once a month. I go crazy. I'm not finicky if, you know, I go to the mikveh every day. If I miss one day, we are so differently. So they used to make the clothing smell because there was a terrible body odor. That was just a part of life. But I'm trying to say, those days, they didn't sleep with clothing for that reason. So he says it's only if you're going into bed, some hold, if you're going into bed to sleep in her bed, that's a problem. But if you just lay down in her bed with your clothing, it's not. That's what he brings about. He says it's not a problem. He says,
but these days where that is not
these days
the case,
it's not the case. It's us.
So it would be us.
Right. The Tzemach Tzedek says, who's marba and chukkas, you are blessed. And marba, you know, like Mikol Mashinim mixes menim the maliga v'sadam mechluchim b'dam shivishi is a mistake. So if the people don't touch the sheets with the woman, you know, when I sometimes learn this halacha, I get all how lucky we are. You know that at times of the Tzemach Tzedek and later, they didn't have pads. A woman got a period, she had a bunch of clothing to make sure to catch, and everyone knew she was bloody. Just bloody. That's what it was. Today, you know, I have a lot of girls, I have absolutely no idea what's going on with them. No one knows. Not even one sister knows the other sister. You just say, we live in a time where it's so, how do you say, hygiene is so great. It's incredible. So they used to have, you know, they used to bleed, and so the people didn't want to touch the bed sheet. If, you know, the men would say, oh, don't touch it. So it says that is ridiculous. No such halacha that I'm saying. I want to say something, and it's in halacha, there's nothing to do with this, but the Taz brings it down over here. You know, sometimes it's amazing how halacha works. In entire Even as it's not mentioned, there's a very famous Taz over here. And the Tzemach said it doesn't bring down, it has nothing to do with it. The Taz says there was a minhag that a man who slept on a bed sheet, a lady should not sleep afterwards in that same bed sheet. Many people have the minhag, they don't even know this minhag.
Another lady or something.
That means Reuven slept in the bed, so tomorrow Mrs. Aleah should not his wife, should not sleep in the bed.
With the same sheets.
Same sheet. Why? Because maybe he spilled the sperm. You know, maybe even unwillingly, and she might become pregnant.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. The Gemara relates such a story. The Gemara relates Yermiah became pregnant on Batya in the bath. A doctor told me, who was a gynecologist many years ago, he brought me in a document that's before the internet, and I never forget, he brought in a Hilchos, and it just showed that there was a girl who became pregnant, and doctors examined her, and she was a psula. She says no one touched her, but she went swimming, and you know, I grew up in Williamsburg, you know how they used to say they went swimming like Uda Marisha before he sinned, without clothing, you know, so they went swimming, boys and girls without clothing. She was a virgin, and she became pregnant because someone spilled the seed, and she became pregnant this way. It is possible. You know, especially young girls who are very fertile, it's very, very, very easy to just become pregnant just like that. So anyways, it says the Hilchos is such a minhag. It was such a minhag. Many people have this minhag. They don't even know what it is. People think it's both ways, but it's not. It's a man sleeps, then a girl shouldn't sleep afterwards. So many, it's a Taz minhag. Why is there so much negaya? Says the Taz seems like, but the man could sleep by his wife. Let's say she's a Nidah, and she stepped on the bed. So why not worried? Maybe the sperm is going to go, she's a Nidah, she might become, she's a Nidah. So this is the famous question, I don't know if you know about it, artificial insemination. Not talking from a husband's sperm to his wife, talking about the famous story happened when I was a very young child. And Moshe wrote a tshuva. What happened was, there was a couple, the doctor said, he'll never have children. He didn't have any sperm. The lady went without her husband's permission, went to a sperm bank. I thought sperm banks only now, but this happened at least 40 years ago, and went to a sperm bank and got herself pregnant. So the question was, is the child a mamzer or not? There was an uproar between the Gedolim. Moshe Feinstein held the child is not a mamzer.
There was no beer.
There was no beer. A mamzer has to be only, even though she was a married lady.
The Satmar said is
And the Satmar never claimed the child is a mamzer. I hope Satmar doesn't listen to me, but if you learn the Chuvas, Moshe is right. His eye is incredible. Very hard to discuss. But the truth, that's an old
You
Machlokas.
see, that was the only time Moshe spoke out to defend one of his Jews.
If you learn the sugya, well, it's a complicated sugya, but one of his big rise is this Taz. Taz says that the meaning never was your own wife. Why wasn't the meaning that your own wife, you stepped on the bed, your wife, it says you're not home, your wife could lay down on the bed. Maybe, you know,
She gets pregnant when she's a Nidah.
she becomes pregnant when she's a Nidah. Why aren't you worried about that?
Oh, Zaraya.
Why are you only, you understand the question? We say if it's a farm,
That's
another
not,
person.
she can't become pregnant.
One second.
You
No,
know,
that's not true.
Last
That's not
time,
true.
at the end of the day, the night before she goes to the mikveh.
Anytime she goes to the
The night before she goes to the mikveh, she can become
If
pregnant.
the child will become a mamzer, we should be worried that even the wife shouldn't lay down on the
Yeah, because
Very
now the
good.
child's out of mouth,
So
she
she
might
might
get
get
pregnant.
pregnant.
She's
She's a
not
Nidah.
as a Ben Nidah.
Yeah.
So the truth is, the Moshe explains this way. Let me finish explaining this.
No.
If a woman gets pregnant and didn't go to the mikvah, then her
It's
kid's
a
a
Ben
mamzer.
Nidah.
No,
It's a
no, no,
Ben
no.
Nidah. That
Okay.
means it's a Ben Nidah. If a white lady did not go to the mikvah,
called a pogrom.
she became pregnant, so the child is called a Ben Nidah. It's pogrom.
Pogrom,
It's
yeah.
not the nicest thing. So no matter why do we say a lady, your wife could lay down on your bed, even though if you're not home, she could lay down on your bed, maybe you spill the seed and she become pregnant, but she's a Nidah.
Not a mamzer, just it's a bad thing.
She
So
might have a
Moshe has
problem.
proved from there that it's not a problem.
So there's not, but someone else's child, if the child is not a mamzer, but we are always worried that even though the child, again, if someone else's sperm is put into a lady, child is not a mamzer.
He
But
can
we
have
have to
brother.
worry, who's the brother? Whose child is this? You know, someone told me, and who's anyone from Australia there? Someone told me in Australia a very frightening thing happened. Someone told me in London too. Child was born,
In England, it means.
a terrible child had all the deformities, and they checked the DNA. The mother and the father had the same DNA. That didn't make sense. What happened was the sperm donor, the
brothers.
These are brothers and sisters, half brother and sister. He was a sperm. Their father was a sperm donor for both. You understand? The mother of the husband and the mother of the wife. Ploidi Amoini Jimmy was the sperm donor. So their husband and wife right now are half brothers. You understand? One father they share. And they realized it from the child was born to check the DNA. So it's, when I once said this, it's a Gemara in Srs04. This is a very famous Gemara in Srs04. You have to worry, your brother should not marry a sister. So someone brought me then, this goes back 25 years ago at least, someone brought me in the LA Times. Sure today you could find it on the internet, those days it wasn't. He brought me a frightening story. Brought me a story. There was a private detective. Years ago, a child was adopted. There was no way that you could find out who his parents were. It was closed, sealed. So you needed someone, as we used to say, knows how to oil the wheels, get the right people and get the information. This guy, this was his job. He was a detective. He became a private detective. Maybe a 19-year-old girl hired him to find out who his parents was. And he was a young guy. He was about 35 years old. And he befriended her, and he fell in love with this girl. He was working very hard. Finally, he broke through. This girl was his own daughter. Wow. He was 15 years old, impregnated a 15-year-old girl. They gave her up for adoption. And it turned out he was the father. Because the mother says a man should not get married to a lady here and move to another place and be married to another lady, but maybe Shema Yisa Achas Achoisoi. So it also bothered me, it's remotely,
But it could happen.
but it could happen. These things can happen. Anyway, so the Taz, I want to explain this Taz. The Taz says that a married woman should not sleep there, and your wife could sleep. And the reason is because of a married woman, because if we're not worried of mamzer, we're just worried you're not allowed to do artificial insemination because you got to know who the father is.
From a yid.
Even from a yid.
You're saying from a goy,
You're allowed, but because you got to know who the father is, otherwise maybe they'll get married. That's the only problem. And the Sapir Rebbe argued, and he said no. Even it's artificial, she's a married lady, the child is a mamzer. That's what it is. The embassy is the child cannot be a mamzer, because tell you another halacha quickly if you're interested, because the din is if a goy lives with a Jewish married woman, the child is not a mamzer. Akin habu al bas yisur, a goy lives with a Jewish girl, even if she's married and she becomes pregnant from the goy, the child is not a mamzer. Mamzer is called a bastard. It's only a mamzer if it's a Jewish person living with a married lady. A goy living, if a lady ran away, this unfortunately happened in this community, and many years ago it was Makabale, this way, a lady ran away from her husband, and look at the goy, she became pregnant. And that child became from Chabad, made the child from. The question was the child was a mamzer or not. So we had to Makabale, this was the father, was who she ran away, and she came, and she was a drunk, don't ask, till we figured out what the story was. But the point is, if a goy lives with a married lady, the child is not a mamzer. So even if you have artificial insemination from a goy, the majority are goy, the child does not make it into a mamzer anyways.
That's still Gilei Arayis?
No,
A goy is gilaros, yes.
No.
The proof is, it is gilaros.
not artificial insemination. What are you asking?
No, I'm asking the guy.
Yeah, that's a separate issue. That's gilaros. That's a separate issue.
I just understood, finish this. When the Rabbanan marry a couple today, just like you have to ask them why they adopted, when would be the time that you're going to have to ask the parents in private if the kids maybe were conceived through artificial insemination? From when? I mean, this is.
I just mama shots.
You want to shut it off? The rest inside.